Good afternoon, everybody. This is Boysen Hodgson. I'm the Communications and Marketing Director for the Mankind Project USA. I am already in pre-conversation, deeply moved and touched and honored to be sitting with Martin Root today. Martin is the author of this book, Project Heaven on Earth. Martin is also a New Warrior Brother, a Mankind Project guy, and we were just kind of checking in with each other to get started in the conversation. I don't remember how long ago Martin sent me an email and said, would you like to take a look at my little book? And I got the little book and sat on it, as I do with the piles of books, and then cracked this book open. And this book is the shit. This book is huge. This book is, there's so much in here. So let's start, Martin, way back when. How did you get started on Project Heaven on Earth?
Hi, Boysen, and hi to all my fellow brothers in MKP. And I was just looking at Houston, February 09. So thank you for everybody who participated in that. It was a turning point in my life. I was just telling Boysen before we started how much it meant to me and how certain incidences still stand out for me. Yeah. So I'm a management consultant. I have worked with large companies, Marion Merrill Dow, Consumer Pharmaceuticals, Sony Pictures, Apple Computer. I've spoken at Harvard Business School 4 times. I was co-author of the New York Times business bestseller, Chicken Soup for the Soul at Work. And I started my work career in Canada. I'm Canadian, dual citizen, Canadian American. I met this guy and we talked about setting objectives and doing things beyond what you believe possible, which really intrigued me. He talked about issues like being responsible, commitment, achieving, again, beyond what you believe possible. This was in the mid-'80s, and I just remember thinking, I've never heard anything like this. This is incredible. So I went to Chicago, took his course, and said, that's it, that's for me. I was working for the federal government in Canada, quit, and started doing these workshops called the Success Factor. And he would come up and lead them, and then we would co-lead them, and then I took over. And people would then say, well, can't you come into our company and do work on vision, on beyond what you believe possible? And I didn't know anything. I'd never done any of that stuff. I just kept saying yes, 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 yes. And I ended up speaking at Harvard on vision 4 times, I think. That was really a highlight of my career. And then I went to Hong Kong, spoke there on vision, came back, went into a funk, boys, and I didn't know what that was about. It was like tongue and groove, and the 2 pieces of wood were separated. And I went to an Augustinian monastery. I'm Jewish, but I went there. That's another story. And had an epiphany experience and decided that I wanted to talk about spirituality and work. And people kept saying, no, you can't talk about that. People will think you're proselytizing, which wasn't true for me. I went to Los Angeles, talked to friends there, all of whom said, go for it. And that was another turning point in my life when I saw that I had to follow what was true in my heart and soul and not look at what the external world said was okay to do or not. And so I was one of the leaders in opening the conversation about spirituality and work, not from a particular, I know what spirituality is and you don't, which would never work, but really as an inquiry, as if you would like to talk about spirituality and work, let me give you some ways in that could work for you. I helped set up a center for spirituality and work, the first one in a business school in Canada, at the Sobey School of Business at St. Mary's University in Halifax. That was a world first that influenced the conversation, because what I was interested in is how can we bring this conversation about spirituality into the workplace in a way that was respectful and useful. I did that for about 20 years. And then I was doing this interview. I'm now in Santa Fe. I was doing a workshop here, or leading excuse me, speaking at a conference and on spirituality work. And I was in the green room before thinking, and I thought, if every business in the world is spiritual, is that what you want? And I said, no. If we can transform business and have it take its rightful place in the world, then we could transform the world. And then this thought popped into my head: you mean heaven on earth? And I thought, oh my God, you can't say that. And then I thought, well, why not? I mean, I could talk to you about hell on earth. That's a permissible conversation. We see those every day. Why can't I talk about heaven on earth? And so I began this inquiry, and I would go around asking people, so what is heaven on earth for you? What is heaven on earth for you? I didn't have an idea what it was for me, but I wanted to, again, open this conversation and make it permissible and safe for us to discuss the kind of world that we deeply yearn for. And my language for that is heaven on earth.
Thank you. This book, yeah. Let's go to the 3 questions next, because I think that's maybe the seg into opening
into the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went around asking people, tell me about heaven on earth. Tell me about heaven on earth. And after many years of doing that, I distilled the answers down into 3 questions, which form the heart of this book. And what I'd love to do, can I ask you the 3 questions now?
Yes.
And then have you answer. And brothers, when you're listening, I'd love you to just pause the video and ask the same question. You can go onto my website, projectheavenonearth.com, and the questions are there, and there's a free course that gives you the questions. All right, but let's go into the questions. And then I want to talk to you about the structure of the questions and why I've done them the way I have. All right, so question 1, Boysen.
Yeah.
Recall a time when you experienced heaven on earth. What was going on?
It's so interesting. I can grab lots of them, and so I showed you a photograph of my family.
You did.
I showed you this photograph of my family, and there was a warrior brother and his family were staying at our house for the weekend, and he's a photographer, and took us out onto the back porch, and there we all were. This was about 1.5 years ago. And so what was happening? I was open-hearted. I was seeing my children as the beautiful creatures that they are. I was connected with my wife in kind of a gratitude space about how far we had come. I was connected to community, connected to my Mankind Project community through having a brother in the house and all of that. And safe, quiet nature at my back, connected to my loved ones, connected to my family, and feeling like I was doing worthwhile work. I was doing the work that I'm here to do.
Very, very clear. Let's go to question 2. Imagine you have a magic wand. So let's just say this pen represents a magic wand. And with it, you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth for you?
Community connection. All people able to, people supporting each other to heal, grow, recognize possibilities in the world, people crossing barriers to connect with others, and sacred spaces for that.
And the 3rd question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours to have more of that?
Simple, easy step I will take in the next 24 hours today. Yeah. So one thing that I will do is I will go to my men's group tomorrow night, Springfield Open Men, where we will have new guys who have never participated in this men's work come and sit with us in a safe circle to begin doing their work. That's one thing that I will do.
Very clear. And that will be, may I ask, will that also be your contribution to Heaven on Earth?
That will be a contribution I make to Heaven on Earth, yeah, in the next 24 hours.
Very good. Now, let's go through the 3 questions. So question 1,
yeah.
Recall a time when you experienced Heaven on Earth. What was going on? I want to talk about what you did and what you did not do. So let's start with what you didn't do. What you didn't do, and what, boys, and what no one does, is ask, what do you mean by Heaven on Earth?
Beautiful, yeah.
Nobody says that. People do what you did, which is answer the question. But how can you answer that question if you don't have what I call the already knowing about what Heaven on Earth is within you, living within you? You went right to that scene, back porch, fellow brother, family, love, light, nature, bang. I mean, I was there. I was there. The second question, here's the magic wand. With it, you can have Heaven on Earth. What's Heaven on Earth for you? The purpose of the magic wand is to eliminate the necessity of having to know how you're going to do it. And if you don't have to know how, you can go purely and powerfully into the what, which you did. Community, you defined it all, and then you did something really interesting. You synthesized it all down into sacred space. That's the essence of it for you. I didn't tell you what that is.
Right.
You told you what that is. And then the third question, what simple, easy, concrete step will you take in the next 24 hours? The reason for that question is I don't want to just leave it at question 2. I want to have you actually engage now, within the next 24 hours, to begin to consciously move that forward. And your answer could have been one of 2 things: something new that you've never done before, which is a contribution to Heaven on Earth, or something that you're going to do anyway, which is the men's group tomorrow, which again, adding that consciousness of Heaven on Earth to it takes on a whole different dimension.
Yeah.
So let me just stop there and see if you have comments about those questions and where they got you.
Thank you. Yeah. Secret's not a word that I use very frequently, but somehow it popped up in this context today. So that's, I'm noting that just as like, that's interesting. And then the idea of intentionality, me going to men's group tomorrow night with the intention of, this is a contribution that I am going to make to create this, to create Heaven on Earth.
Yes.
Yeah. That strikes me as powerful. And I have to bring in, like, right away, because it started popping up immediately, Charles Eisenstein. Do you know Charles?
I don't know. I know of him. We've never met.
We got to get you 2 to meet. We got to get you 2 to meet. His not his most recent book, but his last book was called The More Beautiful World Our Hearts Know Is Possible.
I had not heard that title, but there it is.
And there it is again. And that's going to take us into the whole evolutionary conversation, but I want to reel us back to before we go there. There are the 3 questions. That's how you open the book. I was able to connect, this is a new one. I could answer the question differently if you asked me again.
Correct.
Which I think is beautiful, feels beautiful to me.
And let me say, it's not proselytizing or imposing upon you what Heaven on Earth is, because I don't think that would work. Rather, it's evoking what's already there that you may or may not know. But the point of the evocation is that once it comes to conscious awareness, and as you said, you add the intention to it, now you're a player in this new game. And I want to talk about where that will go.
Good.
So imagine now we have thousands and thousands of people around the world, which we do, all engaging in, this is my conscious contribution to Heaven on Earth. What we're then doing, Boysen, is changing the story. And let me be more specific about that. 5-10 years ago, we heard a lot of language, the current story is not working, it's not working, we need a new story, we need a new story. Right. But let's say that you're in my relationship is one that doesn't work, and I keep coming to you, Boysen, our relationship doesn't work, we need a new relationship. but I just leave it at that, then it becomes a source of frustration. So we stopped hearing that kind of language. What I'm now saying is, look, what I'm proposing is naming this new story as we are experiencing and co-creating heaven on earth. That's what the name of the new story for what it means to be a human and what it means to be humanity. This project works both at the individual level and at the collective global human family level, both. And it says we're naming the story. And the story is we're experiencing in this moment heaven on earth, and we're co-creating, I with myself, I with another, I with others, we, this new story. And so that we can start looking for it. And when it shows up, we celebrate it. When it doesn't show up, we go, great, this is a hell on earth. We need to clean this up.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't impose. So it's not imposed from the outside. It originates, which brings us, Mankind Project work. Where does my mission come from? My mission emerges from me. My mission emerges from a vision that I want to hold. And that's the kind of, keeping that in front of me as I go.
It's a yearning, it's a longing, it's a deep longing of the soul. I don't mean this disrespectfully. I too thought that heaven on earth was a vision. And then the more I heard people speak in terms of answering the three questions, the more I said, nah, it's deeper than that. It's soul speak, it's essence speak, it's divine speak, it's divinity speaking from within. Something about heaven on earth gets to a place within you that's so deep and so profound and gives you safe permission to just bring that out and go, okay, I get it, I'm in.
Thank you. So we've been kind of touching on the personal level, right? That first step is asking those questions. So now take us into the next step of the book. So, and I have a page marked that kind of goes from the beginning, the gateways.
Take us to the
gateways.
So the gateways, I literally just opened the book to that page.
There you go.
So here's what happens. When you ask those questions over and over and over again, what you begin to see are patterns of answers. And it suddenly dawned on me, wait a minute, I'm hearing these same kinds of answers. So I began to distinguish the answers. And so let me go through what I call the gateways, because the rest of the book goes into those 7 gateways and how you can get in them. So, and I want to make this very clear, they're not in any particular order.
Right.
I'll explain that later. So one is your inner world. There are people, Boysen, who say, the more heaven on earth I experience within myself, the more it shows up in the world. How do we do that? Mission, purpose, vision, discovering all those things that MKP, dwells on so beautifully. We have to discover that. And when you discover that, you say, okay, this is the heaven on earth in me that I want to express out in the world. Or there's also places within you that need to be cleaned up. Mm-hmm. And so you go to MKP, you go to therapy, you go to art class, you do what cleans up the stuff. So that's inner. Then there are people who say, well, wait a minute, there's hunger in the world. There's poverty, there's war. Those are more externally based people. But before we get that, let me just do a little bridge here. So then from inner, we go to relationships, because we're going to go to outer. Relationships with yourself, with another, with others, and with the divine. So there's a whole chapter on how do we move relationships into heaven on earth relationships. Then we go, and I discovered people have what I called global values. You know those people who say, well, if we have love in the world, if we have harmony, if we have peace, those are deeply held values that those people say, with those values present in the world, we will have heaven on earth. So there's a whole chapter on what those are. So then that now moves us into the outer. And the outer consists of several things. One is a suffering. Very clear, you hear this over and over. There is a suffering in the world that makes me insane. Yeah. Hunger, could be hunger, could be war, could be poverty, illiteracy, slavery. There is what I call a keystone suffering.
Mm-hmm.
That is, that there's a suffering for you, which is the suffering. And like a keystone in a bridge, if you pull that suffering out, the whole bridge, the whole arch rather of the bridge collapses. And so it's incumbent on you to find what that suffering is for you, if that's your gateway, and begin. And this is interesting, not simply making it better, but rather ending it. That's a real heaven on earth statement. What I've noticed in the last 5-10 years, boys, is there's been this increase in books and individuals and groups coming out saying our purpose, the end of poverty, the end of hunger, not making it better, the end of illiteracy. Those are very heaven on earth statements. They don't want that suffering present in the world. Then I moved into another outer one, which is institutions. What if the purpose of institutions was to help co-create heaven on earth? What if the purpose of religion, the purpose of business, the purpose of science was clearly to help experience and co-create heaven on earth? What would they do in their own organization, for the world, in relationship to other organizations? Then we move into nations. Somebody once said to me, well, what about heaven on earth for my nation? I thought, oh my God, that's brilliant. So there's a whole chapter in which I found people all around the world who talk about heaven on earth for my nation is, and then they answer it. And then the last gateway is heaven on earth this here now. There are those people who say, no, this right here, right now, this is heaven on earth. And our misbelief that it isn't is what keeps us from getting there. So the rest of the book then goes into each of those gateways, and I think pretty creatively to help you find ways that if that gateway speaks to you, that you could find out what your particular project is to help move that gateway forward, to use that gateway as your contribution to heaven on earth.
Thank you. Well illustrated, beautifully laid out. What I love over and over in the book also is it's open-ended, and it keeps being open-ended. So for each one of the gateways, you provide a lot of salient examples from what you've heard, what you've captured, and there's hundreds and hundreds of quotes and examples in the book, throughout the book, which are really beautiful. But you never leave it there. There's always at least 4 or 5 empty check boxes and lines. So if I don't see the suffering that resonates for me, there's space for that. If I don't see the institutional impact that resonates for me, there's space for that. If I don't see the internal work that resonates for me, there's space for that through the whole book. So it's beautifully laid out and just packed with psychoactive. Does that term ring a bell for you? Packed with psychoactive stuff. So psychoactive, I read a quote, in 2 days from now, I'm going to, there's that quote again. There is that. And that kind of psychoactive, it's transforming a thought process. It's transforming what's present and real in the world. Yeah.
I want to, more than open up the possibility of heaven on earth for you, I want you to really engage with it and discover what your contribution is. And so the book goes at it from, if you think of a diamond with all these different facets, and one or more than one of those facets will strike you and go, that's mine. I'm in.
Yeah. And from my heart, soul, from whatever calling is inside of me, right? Keystone, that was something that I'm an old student of architecture from a long time ago. And the other interesting thing about a keystone, when I think about, okay, what's the suffering that I want to go at? There is more force exerted on the keystone than on any other stone in the thing too. So like, it's a high pressure thing. This is not something, I'm not just going to, it's not top knocking off the top brick of a Jenga pile.
Good analogy.
It's
Yeah.
going for the one, it's going for that one where the whole thing is just balanced gently on it, right?
And
Yeah.
to reiterate, there is, what I've noticed is there's usually a suffering. If the gateway for you is suffering, there is one that's yours. And you will hear it over and over again. People go, so I say, so say it's hunger. So when hunger's gone in the world, then what? And you can just see them light up. They don't go to another suffering because they just know that all the others will collapse. And it consistently happens.
Yeah. Beautiful. Now, where are we going from here? So this
So
is
I
the
could
book.
some examples of what
Yes.
people are doing. Well,
Yeah.
let me ask you a question. Say the title of the book, please.
Project Heaven on Earth.
That's one of the titles. The other title is Project Heaven on Earth.
Ah. Yes. Emphasis on the syllable.
It's project is the being,
Mm-hmm.
and project is the doing.
Project Heaven on Earth. Nice.
So some examples.
Or project, as the case may be.
What do you mean a project?
Canadian accent.
Did I sound like that?
No.
All right.
Process,
Yeah.
project. Yes.
That's right. That's right. So let me give you some examples, and I want to give you an underlying condition here, an underlying foundational issue, and you'll see it in a moment. So there was a woman in Hawaii, and we were talking about heaven on earth, and she said, well, I don't know, what can I do? And I said, well, what do you do? And she grows and teaches people how to grow what are called microgreens, little tiny plants that you grow in 10 days. Then you harvest them and grind them all up and drink them. They're very healthy. So that's what I do. Okay, so what can I do? She came up with the idea, boys, of embedding into the end of her email what heaven on earth is for her. So she has 2 statements at the end of every email. She asked the second question. Imagine you have a magic wand, and with it you can have heaven on earth. What's heaven on earth for you? And then she says, for me, heaven on earth is, and in essence, what she's saying is, it's the reestablishment of the Garden of Eden, which makes total sense for her.
Mm-hmm.
We had a police officer in Texas who created a 16-page manual called Heaven on Earth for Law Enforcement. A real estate agent in Halifax, Canada, who brought her agents together and said, we're going to end homelessness, because that's what the suffering was that really punched her in the stomach. And she created this program called A Home for Everyone. Each agent in the office donates $100, has agreed to donate $100 off each commission check. They've raised over $200,000. Project's 5 years old. They're getting tremendous publicity, but more importantly, people are coming, groups are coming to them for funding to provide a home for everyone. And they're putting that thought form into Halifax, a home for everyone, a home for everyone, which I thought is brilliant. And then in the summers, my wife and I have a little cottage on Prince Edward Island, which is an island in Canada, but it's also the birthplace of Canada, and it is a province. About 10 years ago, I was leading a workshop there, and this thought popped into my head. Prince Edward Island is Canada's first heaven on earth province. And what? And I dismissed it. And it kept coming back and back. And finally, I declared, I said, okay, Prince Edward Island's Canada's first heaven on earth province. We now have a group of people who have created all kinds of projects. A cafe has a heaven on earth coffee. A tea lady has created a heaven on earth blend of teas. The Charlottetown Kiwanis Club, which is a service club, has a heaven on earth leadership award open to any student, public or high school, in the entire province. And this past summer, we launched my book up there, and this woman who's working with me said, we got to do something more, put it on the map. We came up with this idea. There are 4 political parties on the island. Excuse me. I went and interviewed the leader, all men, of each of those parties, from the left to the right, including the premier, the governor, all of whom spoke about what heaven on earth is for themselves, the world, and the island, and what they were going to do about it. As far as I know, it was a world first. So that's our little laboratory. And it's starting to spread out. The province next door, Nova Scotia, has begun looking at that as well. Nova Scotia is a heaven on earth province. So what's incredible to me is if we think of Project Heaven on Earth like a piece of metaphorical software.
Yes.
So I present this new software to you, you download it, you open it up, and you go, oh, okay, there's new possibilities, new opportunities here. But it says, I can't continue unless you give me your content. That's the essence of this. We are establishing, co-creating the new story of what it means to be a human and humanity. And you have a part to play as a man that only you can play. We need that. We want that.
Yes, we need that. We want that. You just took us right to men in that statement. So before we got on the phone, you and I were kind of waxing about something going on in the culture, and go back to where we were in that conversation about men.
Yeah, and I think it's important to mark when this interview is taking place. It's the beginning of December 2018.
Yeah.
What I noticed, so I've been working in this field for about 25 years now. The people who got it and who consistently get it instantly have been women. Women, you say the word heaven on earth. I've done workshops, boys, in which they just burst into tears. I've had women sobbing, not crying, sobbing, because something has just been released to them.
Yeah.
And up until recently, I have been saying men are not on board yet. I don't know why, but they're just not. In the last week or two, something has shifted, and I'm now seeing men coming to me wanting to get engaged with this. And it's fascinating. And I take this interview itself as part of that new space that's opening, that men are going, okay, I get it. We need to step up. We want to step up. We need to, but we also want to, and make this world the kind of world we yearn for. We have a part to play as men that only men can play. And so I'm so excited. Excitement is an overused word, but I really am. Something new has opened.
Yeah. Yes. And you and I kind of touched on the idea that, okay, so what's changed? What's happened? And it seems like we're kind of at an evolutionary tipping point in so many ways. And we called out the Me Too movement and Time's Up, and, ecological stuff that's happening out there, and economic stuff that's happening out there, and gender stuff. The whole kind of concept and understanding of gender is shifting.
The threat of nuclear war.
Everything. Right?
I mean, Marianne Williamson, many years ago, I heard her in a speech. She said, look, the environmental issue, the nuclear issue, those are different than any issues we've had before because they have the possibility to wipe us all out. Mm-hmm. And we're growing in consciousness. I mean, perhaps that's, I do. I think that's...
You're growing.
Pardon?
We're growing in consciousness, yes.
We're growing in consciousness, and I think the need for us to step up in light of those two, amongst other issues, but of those two specifically, yeah. If not, what's that old Hebraic say? If not me, who? If not us, who? And if not now, when? Something like that. Yeah.
Yes. Beautiful. And have you done any integral studies? Does integral theory ring a bell for you at all?
I know of it. I don't know enough to speak about it.
So another beautiful thing is that it's the convergence. That's what I'm going to name this right now, is like all of these things are converging. So, shadow work. We've been talking about shadow work in the Mankind Project for the last 35 years, right?
Yeah.
The concept of shadow work, and, in our political environment right now and in the kind of world environment right now, suddenly I'm reading about shadow work in Newsweek and Time. It's there. And what you're expressing in this creation of heaven on earth and what we yearn for, and Charles Eisenstein, with his work, and Russell Brand, who's, his podcast is kind of blowing everybody's mind. It's the same thing. It's all integrative. Integral philosophy, integral theory has this kind of very simple quadrants that's I, we, it, and its. And in your laying out the internal, the relationship, the institution, the national, like, boom, all right there again. And approached from this, what emerges from me. And to men, I think we've spent millennia kind of pretending that we could control the uncertain. But now there's just so much uncertain that, oh, that's not working anymore. So, but what I can follow is that yearning. I can connect with that yearning.
Beautifully said. Beautifully said. I mean, I've been thinking about control lately as well. That's very, it's out of control. Not that it ever was, quote, in control.
Right.
That myth is being shattered. And so what will replace that? And I think you said it beautifully, that yearning coming to the fore and being acted upon in a way that only you can.
Yeah, and maybe we've finally gotten to the place for men where it's the Anais Nin quote, right? Where the pain of staying in the bud, it was more painful to stay in the bud than to bloom. And maybe we've reached that point for men.
So be it. I love that. The coming out of the chrysalis, the flourish, the blossoming, yeah. Those are words that I use. But I'd forgotten about the chrysalis and the butterfly. Yeah. The strong butterfly, you know, I mean, think of monarch butterflies. They fly from Canada to Mexico and back.
Right.
An enormous physical achievement.
Beauty and strength together. Yeah. Delicacy and perseverance are the same thing, right? Like that. And we can be that too. We can be that too. So the book is Project Heaven on Earth, or Project Heaven on Earth, from Martin Root. This is it. I would love, I want a signed copy now, now that we've gotten through this. And
all right, you'll get one.
Let's just talk about how MKP might fit into this. How do you see MKP's work fitting with this, and what's an invitation to new warriors for you?
I think the invitation is, you have something as a man to contribute to our world, to making our world, our home, safe and nourishing and flourishing. And it's something that perhaps society hasn't said you can do, we can do. Excuse me. But what I'm getting, and literally, now is the time for you to step forward. And to step forward, you recall, boys, and I use the word simple. I didn't finish with one other example I wanted to give you because it's pertinent right now. There is a woman, Elizabeth, in Austria. We were talking about heaven on earth, and she said, oh, I know what heaven on earth for me, the project. And I said, yes, what is it? Austria is a heaven on earth nation. And I went, what? What? Why would you say something like that? And she looked at me and she said, well, because it's simple. And that blew a bank vault door open for me, boys. And because I saw that one of the keys here is, what's your simple? When you discover what your simple is, you'll naturally do it. There's no stress. Oh, well, I can do that. Good, do it. Another example, I was on a webinar once. This woman was talking about violence against women. Well, what can I do, Martin? I've been to the police. I've been to the government. Nothing. What would you do? I said, well, Sue, I don't know your financial situation. You could donate $5,000. You could donate a penny. What difference would a penny make? One of the other women on the call said, hey, wait a minute. What if everybody in your county donated a penny a day to help end violence against women? She went, oh my God. They started a program called Making Change, in which they handed out little jars with a picture of a woman, half her face beaten up, bruised, half her face bright, alive with the light coming out. And they asked people to donate a penny a day for a year or more, but a penny, day by day by day. That turned into $2,500 they raised. They took it, this was in Canada, they took it to the federal government, who gave them $100,000 for each of the subsequent 3 years. Incredible. The point being that, what difference does a penny make? Well, nothing. Not true. What difference does your contribution make? Well, nothing. Not true. You can make a contribution that only you can make. We need that. We need it in the world. And men stepping into this, MKP stepping into this, I think will unleash a tremendous force, for normalizing it. So I can come to you and say, boys and tell, what are you doing for heaven and earth? And you just answer the question. And you ask me and I answer the question. It's no big deal. I want to normalize it that way. So there are a couple of little plug. Go to my website, projectheavenonearth.com. You can sign up for the free 7-day course. Order the book. It's available globally on Amazon. And I want to ask brothers to order 3 books. You can order 1, but 3. 1 for you, 1 for somebody in your life right now who you know needs this, and 1 for somebody who's going to come into your life who will need it. And one other thing I want to do, which this has just come out in the last little while, it's a new program called The Case for Heaven on Earth. If you buy a case of books or more, 20 books, and send me the receipt, I'll do a 1-hour webinar for you for any group you want. We've just started doing that. I had my first group last week. It was wonderful. There's lots you can do. And let me know what your project is, because I love talking about the projects. On my site, Project Heaven on Earth, there's a section, Our Stories. There's 63 examples of people doing incredible things all around the world to begin making this happen. So there's lots that MKP to do. And it has to be simple for you to do it. If you're overwhelmed, can't do that. Not interested in overwhelm anymore. There was a law passed last night. I don't know if you know that. In every government in the world, people are no longer allowed to be overwhelmed. It's against the law.
I gotta go take a nap then, apparently.
No, because if you're not allowed to be overwhelmed, you're going to do something or not do something. I want you to do something.
Yeah. So thank you. So brothers out there who are living in mission, right? Yeah. So we've got this. We've taken on this mission as men in relationship to other men as new warriors. And to me, this is like, it's an affirmation, an acknowledgement, a call to action, to just take a next step toward my mission and toward heaven on earth. So Martin, thank you for spending some time with me today. And this will be written up. I'll have links to the book on there. And I look forward to speaking with you again.
Thank you, Boyson, so much.